It is what it is.
Maybe what we just did there is the cold open.
What?
I don't think anything happened.
Or just
yeah.
cold open with me asking if that's a keyblade behind you, Kyle. Just like, yeah.
I was gonna say, let's not set the expectation that it's a boring show at the very beginning.
Welcome back, everybody, to watch more football on the Genreverse Sports YouTube channel. While you are on here, why not check out our main Genreverse YouTube channel as well? You'll find loads of geek content on there, loads of anime, entertainment, reactions, things like that. You'll find similar content to that on Wheel of Time as well. Yes, I'll maybe talk slightly more about that at the end and give a little promotion to that at the end of the show. But we also you will find written content on limonline.com, which we're kind of all part of the same thing. But if you're here to talk about football with myself, Cam, and Ryan. No Dave this week. It's going to be a week-by-week basis with Dave at the moment, and then probably not for a little while once little baby Dave appears at some point, or Davina, maybe I should say, in terms of the sex. But anyway, Ryan, as always, will we get started with our predictions and what actually happened? I know what I got, but I don't know what anyone else got.
Well, you'll be pleased to know that you top scored with 9 this week, and Dave only got 7, so you've slightly clawed him back. The gap's only 6 points now. The gap is only 6 points. That is absolutely doable.
That's nothing.
No. Mick got 8, so he's just about hanging on to you, but he's got a lot of work to do if he's going to catch up to Dave. So Dave's on 198, you're on 192, and Mick is on 185. I actually outscored Kyle for the first time in about a month, I think, which has sort of kept me just slightly ahead. I got 6, Kyle got 4, so it's 148 plays 145 on that. So it's, it's still all to play for, top and bottom, but Mick is in danger of becoming Crystal Palace.
Well, I mean, there's still that fight at the top. I mean, all it could take is one good week for Mick, and he could actually be theoretically ahead of me. Yeah. And if me and Dave have bad weeks, then it's
I mean, he's got 13 points to make up on Dave, which is 2 very good weeks and 2 very poor weeks.
Yeah. Well, we've got roughly 10 match days left at this point. There's some teams, I think a couple of teams have played 29 games, but most teams have only played 28 games. You play 38, so 10 games left. So still quite a lot of points to go to swing it.
There is,
but there'll be some things where it comes down to whether somebody gets a correct score or not, because it's like, well, Liverpool are playing Southampton. Will it be 2-0? Will it be 3-0? Will it be 4-0? And that's
exactly.
And it's kind of where you guess on the day, isn't it?
Absolutely. So I mean, it's still all to play for.
Moving on to our team of the week, in terms of the results that actually happened this week. Ryan, as always, you can
I'll go through that one,
and I'll jump in.
This one had basically picked itself by Saturday afternoon. It was a fairly low-key weekend of football. I thought there wasn't a lot of talking points. There wasn't a lot of shocks, and it was all the usual suspects basically putting in a shift, really. Apart from Liverpool, who were awful against Southampton, but still scraped through with a couple of Mo Salah penalties. But other than that, it all just basically, it just sort of trundled along. But we got David Raya in goal, who, although his positioning was quite poor for Bruno's free kick in the first half, Bruno sends it a yard inside the post, and Raya still doesn't get anywhere near it, which isn't good. In the second half, he did pull off some absolutely amazing saves to keep Arsenal in it. It's a match that United really ought to have won on the balance of play, I thought. Particularly right at the death, he pulls off a double save from Bruno Fernandes, which looked but like you'd put your house on Bruno scoring there, and he does his trademark on the floor and then straight back up to claw out the rebounds. So fair play to him on that one. Right back, we've got Nusayr Mazraoui, and that is because it was a toss up between him and Ola Aina, but unfortunately for Ola Aina, he doesn't play for Manchester United, so Mazraoui is in instead. They both had very similar performances in that they were good defensively, but they were really sort of getting up the pitch and popping up in various areas. Mazraoui struggled as a wing back under Amorim. I thought that was one of his better showings under Amorim. And then on top of that, he was fasting because it's Ramadan and he didn't have anything to eat till sort of halfway through the second half. So getting up and down the pitch like that on an empty stomach, fair play. Centre back, we've got Murillo again. He just keeps knocking up appearances for us. He was everywhere against City again. Just I think he's my favourite centre back in the league at the minute. He's just really fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. And then next to him we've got Jan-Paul van Hecke, who I've never really rated, to be honest. I think he's got a mistake in him, and he's got a bit of he can blow a fuse quite easily, I think. But he kept Fulham fairly quiet, and then his header that he scored to draw Brighton level was really nice. It was just he was in acres of space, but it was a nice looping header. And then at left back, you got Milos Kerkez, who was an absolute menace against Spurs all game. Set up Bournemouth's first goal. He picked up on a loose pass on the edge of his own box. He sprinted 60 yards and then bombed in an absolutely perfect cross to the far post from about 30 yards out for Tavernier to tuck away. And just, it was a typical performance from him, but he was the best player on the pitch, I thought, against Spurs. And neither of the goals that Spurs scored were his fault. So that goes for him as well.
Yeah.
In midfield, we've got
Adam. Dave wanted to make an argument for Cucurella, but
yeah, but in the same breath, he was saying that they were absolute. Yeah, in the same breath, he was saying that they were absolutely crap against Leicester, who are absolute crap.
Yeah,
so
I think when you're playing Leicester, it's the same why there's not really many. If there's no Liverpool players in this week,
they don't get credit for that. Yeah. Yeah.
Unless you win 8-0.
So moving into midfield again, Dave wanted Moises Caicedo, but he can't be bothered to turn up, and Chelsea were not that good, so he's not getting in. Instead, we've got
the three that are there deserved it.
Yeah, we've got the Caicedo regen at Brighton, Carlos Baliba, who again is he's a brilliant little player. He's got so much energy in midfield. He gets everywhere. I'm going to say this about a lot of players, but I wouldn't mind United having a sniff at him in the summer. He would provide a lot of what we're missing in that midfield, I think. Adam Morton, similarly,
charge you a fortune.
Oh, absolutely! It'd be our entire budget.
You can afford that.
It'd be our entire. We'd have to take the cent off the stadium.
He's just came. He's contracted up. They don't need the money because they're there. People have sold recently. It's just there's no interest in them.
It's the same goes for Adam Morton. And I'd love Adam Morton at United, but he's going to cost 100 million as well. And there's much better clubs than United sniffing around him. But he's come back from injury recently, and he's not missed a beat. He's playing like he was at the back end of last season. He's going to get into the England squad in the next week or two. He's probably going to play a key part in the World Cup next season. He's been brilliant. And then Yuri Tielemans, who just had a good game for Villa against Brentford.
I don't think it's been like an outstanding season for him, but he's had spells where he's just had really good games. He's been in the team of the week a few times this season, and then
he's one of those squad players
you're missing for weeks.
He's one of those squad players you want, I think, where he can be a starter and he can do well, but he can have a few games out on the bench and come in when he needs to, and he'll still give you a 7 out of 10. You haven't really got to worry about it. I don't think he ever drops a stinker, but he does also come up with the odd game-changing moment. So, he's done well, and obviously he gets overshadowed by Morgan Rogers a bit in there as well. So, and Marcus Asensio now. And then moving up to the front three, we've got Callum Hudson-Odoi, who beat Edison at his near post to put Forest ahead against City.
He was a menace. He was a
He
menace.
did. He had a
them, though.
he had a
He's
really
having
good
great
chance in the
season.
first half where he just did his trademark cut in and shoot, and it just came off the post, which was unfortunate for him. But yeah, he's been great. Ismail Assar on the other wing, who again I always liked him even when he was at Watford. I was surprised that it was I was surprised it was Marseille who picked him up, but I'm glad he's back in the league and he's a Palace sort of player, I think. And he's doing well for them. He picked up another goal, and then Ollie Watkins he looked like last season's Ollie Watkins all game. He scored one. He very nearly scored another straight away, but he got ruled out for a marginal offside. And he just slightly on the left, cutting in behind, being played in with loads of space. It's where he's at his best. So it was a good performance for him, because it's been a quiet few weeks for him, I think.
The other thing is there was no other strikers out there that really went to town this week, really, score-wise. None of the usual contenders kind of thing. So I think he deserves a spot this week. He was the best centre-forward.
Absolutely. So yeah,
right,
I've done a bit of totting up on our cumulative team of the season as well, and I think I'll go through that during the international break as well, just to see where we all are. But it's looking roughly as you'd expect, not just from if you've been paying attention to our podcast, but I think if you asked people to name their team, if you ask people to name their team of the season, I think what we've got so far is pretty bang on. There's a couple of interesting ones in there, but we'll go through that in a couple of weeks' time when
there's probably a little bit of bias, and maybe another group of people that supported different clubs, they'd have a slight bias to other things, but it won't be crazy. Put it that way.
No.
So, I mean, one thing that this weekend has kind of thrown up is we only have one thing to play for this season now. If we look at the league, Liverpool are now so far ahead. Arsenal dropped 2 points at the weekend again by only managing a draw against Man United at Arsenal's ground.
No, it was at Old Trafford.
No, was it at Old Trafford?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, fans were quiet.
And they were.
Oh, that's right. I remember slagging off Country Roads.
Yeah.
Country roads, take me home. This won't be a home for very long, but we'll get to that bit later.
Yeah.
I can only think of Kingsman and the Golden Circle, the second one, when I hear that song nowadays. It's not the best movie, but Mark Strong is a blast in that.
Mark Strong just growling out Country Roads as he's shooting a bunch of henchmen. Amazing.
I do remember that scene.
Yeah.
Liverpool have won the league. It's already done. They would have to have the most spectacular bottle job, which Liverpool are not known as bottlers. That the league has ever seen, win it at this point. So if we completely ignore that, everything else is getting tighter, because Arsenal used to be away up there with Liverpool challenging, but now they're getting dragged back, and there's only 3 points now between them and Forest. And then, when you look at the rest of the table down to about, 10th or 11th or something like that?
Yeah.
The point difference is just non-existent.
Yeah, so you've got Arsenal on 55, so they are, worried about staying in the top 5, which is down to Newcastle on 47 points. They're in 6th. But then, 5th is going to be good enough for the Champions League. So that's City on 47 points. Yeah, that's City on 47 points, which Fulham are in 10th on 42. And then Palace are in 11th on 39, which is probably a bit too much.
I don't. For me, it's, and I don't really see Fulham doing it either.
No,
but they're in the hunt.
But that is,
they're only 2
that
points
is,
behind Bournemouth, and I think Bournemouth are in the hunt. So,
that's just I can't
ignore them.
That's just for the Champions League, though. But then from there, you've got the Europa League spots, you've got the Conference League spots. If you have a non-Champions League team winning the FA Cup, if you have the non-Champions League team winning the Champions League, or winning the Europa League, then so it could be all the way down to 9th, gets a European spot.
Yeah, I still don't see many. for me, Palace and below, I don't see any of them coming up into it because not enough teams would fall back the other way for that to happen.
Exactly.
But yeah, that second to 10 are really competing for quite a lot of places there.
And you're going to have some very disappointing teams. You're going to have some really good teams that miss out on Europe next season, I think.
I mean, but they're all. That's the thing. You look at that, right? Fulham are a good team. Bournemouth are a good team. Aston Villa are a good team, and in the Champions League this year, and still in it. Brighton have been a good team for years. Probably slightly better than they've been. This year, Newcastle have been in the Champions League before, finished in the top 7 last year, and then you've got, two big hitters, Man City and Chelsea, who are spending billions on, players and stuff like that. And then you've got little old Nottingham Forest. We say little old Nottingham Forest, but of course they have won the European Cup 2 times more than Arsenal, who sit above them.
They won the European Cup before any of those other teams. I don't know, when did Villa win it, before or after them?
After. It was the year after. I believe
before my time.
It was the English league was so dominant at that point. I believe it was Liverpool, Forest, Aston Villa in that order, right through for like 70, 80 or something like that. So at that point, they had won one more European Cup than you guys.
And then at that point, UEFA banned us from playing, didn't they? So
yeah. And the whole
that was the only reason. That was the only reason.
It come back as the Premier League, and Forest just weren't the team that they used to be, whether they were who they were owned by or whatever, but they were just run badly and they kind of fell down the leagues. And it's great to have them back. I think they are a proper Premier League team.
Yeah, it's good.
They've got some backing. They run well. I think they will do it. I think they will get Champions League this year.
I would say run well is a bit of a stretch. They broke the rules last season and absorbed the hit, and it's put them in a very good position this season. I wouldn't call that.
They have an owner that's willing to put in his own money.
Yes, but it's about where that money allegedly comes from.
Well, that's a completely different issue. You could levy that at every single club because every billionaire out there is dirty in some way. I don't care. You don't become a billionaire by being clean as a whistle. But besides that, I think what I mean is they're not putting themselves into tremendous. He's not just going to pick up sticks and leave them in a lot of debt. It doesn't look like he can afford to
he's also doing. He's trying one of those multi-clubs because obviously he owns Olympiacos out in Greece. And Arsenal sporting director Edu left to be in charge of, he works for Marinakis directly rather than for Forest. So he's overseeing all that. And I think they've got a club in Portugal as well, which, most of these sort of groups do. They start in Portugal.
I don't like the multi-club model, and I know there's been a lot of talk about that, but it's allowed, so it is what it is at the moment. But I just think they've got a good chance of actually achieving it. Whether the hardest thing is to stay there. It's so hard. Look at it was us, then it was Aston Villa. If it is Forest, you can almost guarantee they will not be in the Champions League race next year, because when they're in it, it will just sap them so much in terms of Leicester in that. But I love that we're getting this.
Leicester won the league and then got top 4 a couple of years later, and they still couldn't make it stick, could they? So it's difficult. I think Forest are good for staying in the top 4, never mind the top 5 this year. They're difficult to beat, and they're difficult to score against.
A couple of hard ones, but.
They're difficult to break down, which is the important thing, isn't it? They don't really need to score goals. They can tick along with draws and the odds.
Only thing would be if it starts to get into their heads, and they start bottling it a little bit as it gets towards the end. If it's getting
I suppose
a bit tight and people are on their tail. But I'm not saying that will happen. It's just
going into the season, they would have been delighted with Conference League, but now that they're that close to Champions League, it is going to be a bit of a letdown if they don't make it.
Europa, I think, would be
although I think realistically, I know the Champions League is the Champions League and you want to have a go, but Europa would almost be better for them because they'd have a chance of actually making a fist of that. You know, I don't think
it's the money.
I don't think
it's the
money.
It's like when we announced our budget, it was like recently it was based on the year that we get Champions League, and it's like an extra so many. And I think it's more now than it was when we were in it because of the new format and everything like that as well. And you've got much more of a chance of getting out. Like when we were in it because we were low seeded, like Forest would be us seeded nothing, but you've actually got a chance. Because you're going to play teams in and around your seed. I mean, like Celtic qualified for the knockouts this year. They haven't been close in my lifetime to getting even out the group stages of the normal Champions League.
I just don't think, like, obviously their team is playing very well this season and they've managed to secure a lot of their better players to good contracts. So they're not necessarily going to get picked apart in the summer. I just don't think it's a squad that's as geared for it like Aston Villa's was last season. I don't think it's quite at that level. And I know Villa have struggled to juggle both this season, but they're still on paper, I would say, a better team than Forest. And
they won't be like flush for PSR in the summer. It's not as if they'll be able to go and spend loads. They'll probably be able to keep their players, but you know, they may have to look at buying smartly and well that they did previously. So I don't know. Anyway, what would you say? So, do you think Arsenal's finishing second? Do you think there's a chance of them falling back, or do you think they'll finish second?
I think they'll finish second, but it'll be tight. They can't score goals at the minute. You know, they looked absolutely toothless against United, and although United have been playing better, it's still a team that can be got at. It's still a team that is the same 11 players every week who are absolutely knackered, supplemented by a bunch of teenagers who've never played. And they just didn't look like they were going to do anything all game. It took an absolute worldie from Declan Rice to get back into it.
Yeah.
But equally, they can grind out enough draws to stay there. That's the thing from here is...
I don't think draws will do it from here.
No, but
I think you need wins.
But I think Chelsea and City... So Chelsea are on 49 points, City are on 47, Arsenal are on 55. Chelsea and City might both grab a couple of wings, but for every win they get, they could have a couple of losses. The way they play,
I think they'll probably will, because I think Forest will get nervous at some point as well. I think Chelsea will lose some more games, and unless City go on a silly run, I think then. I don't see them catching them. So I'd have Arsenal in there.
City's record for the last 5 games is win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. So it's they're not looking anywhere like they normally do this time of year. Chelsea is similar. I mean, even Forest have had a few poor results before this weekend.
Let me push it in. Who's third for you?
Who's third? I think Chelsea will overtake Forest into third, but I think Forest will stay in the top 4. Just to make it interesting. So if I go through the table and just say everyone's going to stay where they are.
Fifth. Who's fifth? Do you see City getting the last Champions League place?
Fuck it. Let's say Newcastle are going to do it because fuck City. Fuck City.
I don't think we, especially with the injury situation we've got, the cup final if it doesn't go our way. I don't think we will get Champions League this year. But I could see us finishing 6th or 7th and getting a Europa League spot this year. But I think City will get Champions League. I'm not so sure about Chelsea. If I was to see Newcastle come in and somebody else falls out, I would say it would be Chelsea before Forest or City at this point. Just the way that
you've got to remember as well the ruling for City's case is due this month. It's gone a bit quiet, but they were saying it was going to be released in March, so that changes things. I suppose if they get exonerated, it galvanises them a bit. But if it comes out bad for them and it's launching all the appeals and all that sort of thing.
I mean, what if they get a deduction or something?
Exactly.
Like
if they get a deduction, even if they're going to appeal it.
Race, yeah.
So we'll see. That's a big unknown.
Yeah.
But I think on the pitch, I think City could potentially drop back still. And then what I'm going to say is Villa and Bournemouth are both going to finish above Brighton, because although Brighton have put in some good performances recently, and I've got them to beat City at the weekend actually, I think they are still quite inconsistent over the course of the season.
I agree. I don't think they'll win consistently enough. I think Bournemouth's a more rounded team than them, and I would fancy them to finish above Brighton. But
and then Fulham, Fulham and Palace, I think, will fall away. I think they'll be on the beach by April a little bit, because they'll just be too far away to really do anything.
Could see and getting a bit more consistency once they get put out the Champions League, which I believe will happen eventually. I don't know when.
Well, they play the winner of Liverpool PSG next round, so you'd imagine it'll be then.
Should be, I would guess that.
Incidentally, PSG are 1-0 up.
Are they? Wow, so that was after
quite early on.
So it's almost like a reverse so far of the previous game, because they were dominated and lost 1-0. And Liverpool were attacking here, and now PSG scored. Interesting. So our kind of second topic that we wanted to talk about today, because there isn't a massive amount to talk about from the games, but there was an announcement made just today. As we record this, I don't know when it'll actually get published, but and it's that Man United, and we all kind of knew this was coming, but Man United have announced that they're building a reported $2 billion new stadium. It will replace Old Trafford. It will be close by, but it will be a brand new stadium, and they'll get to play in Old Trafford up until the new one is ready. They're anticipating that it will take about 5 years to build, but I believe I was reading something today, Ryan, that said that they don't actually have a kick-off date for it yet. It's not as if that's 5 years from today. And there was some government officials saying, "Oh, we've still to look at this, that."
So they haven't got the planning permission yet. But what is happening is that the government, both the sort of the federal government, national government, and sort of the mayor of London, mayor of Manchester, they're on board because they want to regenerate the wider area, because it is in not the best area of Manchester. It's not the newest area of Manchester, shall we say, which is part of the charm of Old Trafford is that, probably more 15, 20 years ago, part of the charm was you had this brilliant state-of-the-art stadium, but it was still built by brick, and you still got off the tram and basically walked past a terrace of houses to get up to the stadium, and that I think was part of the charm. But what they're trying to do is just regenerate the entire area, put some new houses up, put some new businesses up. I think
every club that can afford to do it has to do this, and it just makes sense. You've got to be pretty excited. This big. Once it's up,
like I said, Old Trafford is not a bad stadium to be able to say your club goes to, as it is. It clearly needed some work, which it didn't make a lot of financial sense to do. But I do think part of the attraction for these new stadiums is the actual football match on a Saturday is only a very small part of it. It's the tourism, it's the other events, and that's where the big wider campus
use their stadium to generate other money. That's what Spurs have shown by their stadium down in London, which is getting used for a lot of different purposes, and it's generating the club income, and that's what all the Premier League teams are now that can afford are now looking at.
I think what the delay is obviously it needs some of the levelling up money from the government, which was promised quite a while ago from Boris Johnson, which never came. And obviously we're quite a few governments on from that, and a completely different party.
Have they not announced that it wasn't even going that far to level up?
So we haven't got the planning permission, because I think what needs to happen is there's part of the site where we're building it on, or sort of behind the Stretford end, there's a disused rail line. But what I think they want to do is incorporate that into the new site, so it's a working train station. Because at the moment you've got Trafford train station, which it's a decent ways away. You've got quite a walk, or you've got to get a cab or whatever from there. Or you've got the Old Trafford tram station, which is further down the road and past the cricket ground as well. Which whenever I've been to a game, I've sort of gone up to stay with my family in Wigan, got the train down into Manchester, got the tram up to the cricket ground stop, and done that. It's about a 2 mile walk basically, but it's in a straight line, and basically all the crowd sort of builds up as you go along. and that's part of the experience for me. But they want to basically get a rail station there to service all the new houses as well as the stadium. And
looks cool.
It looks cool.
It'll be a good stadium. I don't like necessarily the design of it from the outside, like the circus tent look. I just don't like it.
So,
but I like how it looks inside and how the way that they've got it set up inside.
Because it looks if cool. If you take that tent away, it looks just like every other new stadium. It's just a big, smooth, round toilet bowl looking thing.
I suppose the tent is what then gives the whole public.
The tent is what makes it iconic. They're talking because there's going to be, and again, these designs aren't finalised. And if it ends up looking like that in 5 years' time when it opens, I'll be absolutely staggered, to be honest, because it is really sort of sci-fi a little bit at the minute. But you've got the three pillars. The tallest one is going to be 200 meters tall, and it's going to have a viewing platform according to these concept pictures. And the big sort of money shot is that as you come out of this new train station, there's a new sort of walkway up to the stadium. The three pillars sort of line up like the trident on the United badge, which is cool. Although actually they've got. Look, I'm looking at the badge on my shirt that I'm wearing. I'm looking at this picture. They've got the prongs the wrong way around. They've got the two short ones on the outside and the one big one in the middle. But I think it's the other way around on the shirt. But that's by the by. You can change that, can't you? But I mean, the tent thing is I think the interesting part of it, because they're saying it's basically going to be solar panels. That's what the tent's going to be made of. I don't know that the technology necessarily exists to do that right now. But I'm
not sure there's enough sun in Manchester to make it.
Well, no, so that is also very true, which is why the whole thing's got to be made out of solar panels, I think. But the architect Norman Foster is quite a famous architect. Apparently, I don't pay attention to these things. But in his little promotional video, he was saying that it's going to harness all the sunlight. So the tent's going to be solar powered, but it's also going to harness the much more plentiful resource in Manchester, which is the rainwater. So that's going to be interesting. Maybe they make it a bit self-sustaining.
I'll have a tiny little marginable percentage, like 3% of the water used at New Trafford is actually recycled from rainwater.
I mean, generally,
it's the electricity used at Old Trafford.
You look at it,
generated by solar power. That's all.
You look at it, and the top of it looks almost like a bowl, like it looks like a giant gutter all the way around anyway. And then it's just smooth slopes for it all to run down. So unless they are collecting it and like redistributing it around the stadium, it's just gonna spill over into the quay, isn't it? Yeah,
and it would just be like a waterfall. You'll have to walk through.
So they've obviously taken inspiration. They said they were going to take inspiration from the current Old Trafford with this, so maybe that's where it comes in. Is they got a built-in water feature there.
I'm a little bit jealous. I must admit, not in terms of like. It's not. I don't love the design necessarily, but I'm jealous that you guys have announced your stadium plans before we have. When we've actually theoretically been working on it, I think a little bit longer.
I think it's a much needed win for Ineos because they've been in place just over a year, and when they came in, the idea of a new stadium was like a pipe dream. It was, we sort of need a new stadium, but there's no way the Glazers are going to put their hands in the pocket for it. Ineos aren't necessarily going to put their hands all the way in their pocket for this either. They're looking for a lot of external funding.
Investment.
But the fact that they've gone from what 14 months ago they get the keys to the club to now they've got basically proof of concept for the new stadium, and they're making this big PR offensive about this is what we're going to do. I think that's quite impressive work, to be honest. But obviously they've got to deliver on that. It is difficult though, because done the
homework properly, or whether they've announced it all a little bit early.
I mean, they've had a task force in for quite a while, so they've had a specific team on it, and they've had outside help. So they've had Andy Burnham, the mayor of Manchester. They've had Sebastian Coe, who obviously played a big part in getting the Olympics to London and building that stadium, which West Ham are playing in now. They've got Gary Neville in there, which is probably where all the sustainability stuff has come from. And he's done a bit with property in the area as well, and a few other people. So they have been working on it, and they've kept the powder dry. The issue for me is these are big. This is what Manchester United should be. This big, futuristic, forward-thinking stadium. it's at complete odds with what Jim Ratcliffe was saying he did a round of interviews with every single publication yesterday, basically saying that the club was on the brink of failure unless he took away staff lunches. So you can't marry, you can't marry, we're going to run out of money by Christmas to we're going to build this £2 billion stadium. That's I get that the money comes from different places, but it's so I think it's a win that Ineos needed, because the heat was starting to turn towards them, but they've tried to bury a lot of bad news with it. I think the interesting thing with what he was saying yesterday about the financial struggles at the club, I think he was right to say, and he was right to be honest about it. It's what basically everyone's been saying about the club, in that they're paying the mistakes for overpriced transfers. There's players that we're still sort of repaying who aren't really part of the first team picture. Some of them are on too high wages. We've not been cutting our cloth. We've been living outside our means, and we've got to try and cut all that back. He's right to say all that. Everyone is saying that, but because he's the sort of mouthpiece for United, he gets battered for it, for facing up to that reality. And I think having a more modest summer and having more modest targets in the short term is going to be better for the team, because it's going to allow them to grow. But at the same time, he's made it quite clear where he wants the club to be eventually. Internally, there's still a target for them to win the Premier League by 2028, which is the 150th anniversary of the club. Now, that a lot has got to happen for that. I don't think
that's ridiculous.
A lot has got to happen, but it
is possible, because football's crazy. It is crazy.
You look at I think
Newcastle this was 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, and I think the more relevant example is Arsenal. Is obviously this season they've dropped off a little bit, but they've been seen for the last 3 years as title challengers, whereas you look at the 3 years before that, they were nowhere near it. So it can change that quickly. And fine, Arsenal haven't got it done, but I think the league is going to look a lot different by 2028, because you're not going to have Pep at City.
It's just my opinion. I don't think you'll get back to where you want to be that quickly, but I'm not saying it's impossible. It absolutely could happen.
It's something to aim for, but I do think
window, and you just don't.
I do think for the next 2 of those 3 years, we are going to have to set our sights a little bit lower. We're going to have to look at next season needs to be top half, maybe Europa League as the target, as the maximum target, and then you'd build into let's get into the Champions League, and then it's right. That's how you do it.
Just don't know if the expectations will get kept quite as low as that. I mean, from media, from fans, but that's something you've talked about in previous shows.
It's an impossible one to get right, because when we went out of the cup against Fulham the other week, Ruben Amorim said that his goal is still to win the Premier League with the club, and he had Wayne Rooney in the studio saying, he's a bit naive for thinking that. Yeah, fine, we're miles off winning the league, but it's not naive to be aiming towards that. But equally, if Ruben Amorim had said, "Oh yeah, we just want to make sure we get into the top half of the table next year," Wayne Rooney's going to give him a hammering for that, saying, back in my day."
You're right.
So
you're absolutely right. Yeah. And it would be the same, like if you look at Eddie Howe, he's not going to turn around and say, we just want to try and get this, or we try and get that. He'll say, we want to win every game, we want to compete for every trophy. Whether he really believes that they actually can do it internally.
And I think the last few weeks, we've really sort of the sort of Amorim blueprint has really started to come together. I think it's still not necessarily being executed as well as it could do, but you can see the idea, and when it does sort of come together, it looks quite good. It is really, we've got 11 fit players basically, and not all of them are particularly suited to that. So in the summer, with a bit of a clear up, we might see a bit more of it, and then we'll see. Ruben Amorim himself has said, the club wants to win the league by 2028. I might not be here by the time that happens, because if he does win sont of 1 game in 3 next season, he's not going to get the whole season.
Well, yeah, so he would be out.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens, but I think we will need to look at that next season. As always, new season, everybody's starting with a fresh slate, and you just never know no one would have predicted some of the stuff that's happened this year. So
no, definitely not.
But it'll be at least 5 years, probably more likely maybe 6 or 7 before we see this super stadium.
It is.
So I do hope Newcastle announce our plans soon. Won't be as big as Manchester.
I am going to be sad to see Old Trafford go, because for all its faults, it is a great place, and the faults add to the charm for me. I like a bit of grime, and I like a bit of lived in stuff. I mean, like, the ground that I've got behind me, Wesley Park in Havant, it's an absolute shithole, but it's got a lot of charm because it's a shithole that you just wouldn't get with a new stadium, It's
but you can't have that.
It's sort
you can
of
have that at a small club.
But it's that sort of working class. It's that working class link to the sport, isn't it? We're gonna spend our money every week to go to this shed, and it's
half the clubs are owned by Americans now.
Yeah.
It's like 80% of championship clubs are owned by Americans.
I just don't think you don't go to the football to be comfortable and to be looked after. Is what I would say. There's a lot.
I'm with you. If you want that, stay at home. You're going for the atmosphere. But anyway, should we move on to our predictions for next week? And what we actually put.
Why is it gone? Oh no, there it is.
I think Mick did send me his top 8 predictions, but
we're doing top 8 predictions. Yeah, we should probably.
Well, we did, but I didn't get any from Dave. But Mick said, other than Liverpool, Arsenal, City, Forest, Newcastle, Chelsea, Villa, Bournemouth. That's his kind of top 8. So not that dissimilar from what we said, really.
So,
but yeah,
big games this weekend. So I think City Brighton is a big one, because it is in that pack for Europe, isn't it? And it's a game that I think Brighton can get something out of. Although I'm the only one who's actually gone for Brighton in this one, which is
City are at home, aren't they?
City are at home, yeah. You've got Arsenal Chelsea, which again, Arsenal Chelsea is gonna have wide implications, but I think that is going to be quite a drab draw, a bit like the United game was this weekend, to be honest, because both teams struggled to score.
My feet.
Yeah, and then Fulham Spurs. This will be a one for Fulham where, we'll be able to see how much they can keep up, because they ought to be able to beat Spurs at home. So it's if they don't get something out, I think that's them sort of out of it, really.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And then we've got
I think you need to win that.
And then we've got the big one on Sunday, the League Cup final, Liverpool versus Newcastle. So, I mean, I know your thoughts, but do you want to tell the viewers how you're feeling going into this one?
I mean, completely unconfident. Liverpool currently playing PSG, fighting for Champions League. My only hope is that this game that's currently going on just now goes to extra time, goes to penalties. Liverpool injured, they get players injured, they're knackered, and then at the end of it, they get beat on penalties so that they're really, really low. And then on the flight back from Paris, damn it, they're playing in Liverpool.
Yeah, they're at Anfield.
The coach on the way back home, they all break down. There's a big traffic jam in Liverpool, and everybody's dead annoyed, and blah blah blah. And then the flight gets delayed to London. And if all these things go against them, and everything goes well for us, then we have a chance. But realistically, Liverpool probably beats us quite comfortably, and it's another lost final.
I agree with you on all but one of those points. I don't think a Liverpool loss does any favours for you whatsoever, because Arne Slot is the type of manager who goes, that's not good enough, you're working double time, and we're going to absolutely batter them in the final.
But then if they get injured because they're working too hard, it's trying too much, they get injured, you never know.
If they go through extra time, they go through penalties, and they have one of their big, famous, historic, heroic Anfield nights, and go through against PSG, fine. I think Slot will be trying to keep the feet on the ground, but I think they'll be like, it will be a big come down. And yes, fine, it's a big occasion at Wembley, but it's sort of you go from that big spectacle to fine. The League Cup final is massive for Newcastle, but they won it last year with a bunch of kids, so it's just like,
I mean, I hope you're right. I just don't see them being as weak mentally as that. And I think they're just simply a better team than us. So it's a miracle. We're praying for a miracle. Yeah. If we come here the next time we record this show, if we win the Carabao Cup, I will be ecstatic. It'll be the miracle at Wembley. But it would be a miracle if we win it. So that's the way we've got to go into it, just hoping for a miracle, I think, at this point. And if it happens, great. And if it doesn't, don't be too cross, because you can't always beat teams that are better than you.
Either way, we'll dissect it
next week
when we come back next week. Yeah.
And hopefully we'll get Dave. Depends on the situation, but he says
nice to have Mick as well.
I've not seen him for ages. Last in. I think he hurt his hand at the darts and he's been resting it, so he's not been able to type in or chat or anything like that, because he's that here. But I think Mick's had quite a few issues with his family as well. So kids sick and young kids sick, so these things happen. Well, sure, we'll try and get him back at some point. If Newcastle win, he'll actually take the time to jump on.
Oh, absolutely! He'll drop everything. He'll drop everything. Sunday. We need to get a short video out of him if you win, at least. Just with a towel around his head down the pub.
And we didn't kill him somewhere and bury him. But yeah, thanks very much, everybody, for watching. I did want to just give one final plug for on our Genre Reverse YouTube channel. If you're into the Wheel of Time at all, then we're starting back the Dragon Reviewed, which is myself, Kerr Malone here, the producer, and his lovely wife, Christine. And those guys have never read the books. I have, and they've been reacting, giving their reviews from season 1 right the way through. They've got one up just now of them reacting to the trailer for the first time, which we just did this week, and then we'll be going episodically throughout it and see what we think. So if you're into that and you want to hear what people say, give that a shout. That should be starting this kind of Friday, I believe Friday, maybe Saturday before it publishes, depending on how quick we get things done. Thanks very much for watching. Give us a like and a subscribe if you can, because it will really help us out, and see you next week.
Yeah, see you guys.